Chapter 25 of The Phantom of the Opera, entitled The Scorpion or the Grasshopper, Which? This is the Persian's narrative concluded. Raoul and the Persian are appalled to see that the basement is full of explosives. The 11 o'clock hour indeed was something to fear, because at that hour the opera house would be full of people. With the light now diminishing all around, they are forced to go back the way they came. And as they go, they realize that the fate of the opera house and everyone in it is in the hands of Christine if she should refuse to marry Eric. They start to sense that the hour of doom might already be drawing near, and with no other way to get to Christine, they find themselves back in the torture chamber. They can hear Christine, who tells them that it's true and that time is almost up. She tells them that Eric has given her a choice to make. In the Louis Philippe room, 2 caskets are fitted with 2 different kinds of dials, one which is a scorpion and the other which is a grasshopper. To turn the scorpion, Eric tells her, would be to signal to him that she will indeed marry him. To turn the grasshopper, as everyone figures out, would be to trigger the explosives in the basement. The Persian knows that Eric's a monster. The 2 switches might actually be switched, so that if you were to turn one thinking it was going to do something, it might actually do the opposite of what you might think it would do. But since there's no way to know, Christine takes Eric at his word and she chooses to turn the scorpion. It turns out to be a good choice, but there's a problem. The cellars and the torture chamber start to fill up with water, and it threatens the lives of Raoul and the Persian. Chapter 26 of The Phantom of the Opera, entitled The End of the Ghost's Love Story. We learn that the Persian had passed out and woke up in Eric's room with Eric and Christine looking at him. Raoul's exhausted and he's sleeping on the sofa, and it seems that Christine has agreed to marry Eric. The Persian gets taken home, and here he gets a visit from Eric, who tells him that Raoul's brother died in an accident at the lake. The Comte de Chagny thought that Raoul had abducted Christine and taken her into the cellars, but we know that wasn't the case. Before marrying Christine, Eric was forced to take Raoul away and lock him up somewhere. But when he kisses Christine, claiming that it was the first time that he had ever kissed a woman, he becomes overwhelmed with emotion. He releases Raoul so that Christine can marry him. For this, Christine kisses him in return. This is the moment that Eric begins to experience despair, and before long we learn that Eric, the Phantom of the Opera, has died. Epilogue of The Phantom of the Opera. The narrator of the story tells us that Eric was a real person, but no one believes it. They believe that Christine was caught in a rivalry between 2 brothers. What we learn is that Christine and Raoul went north, taking Madame Valerius with them. The story itself was put together as a corroboration between the writer and the Persian, and it turns out that Moncharmin had written a memoir about it as well. He claims and he insists that everything that had happened to them with the money was all a joke, considering that the money had been returned. The answer to its disappearance turns out to be a tiny trap door in the floor that Eric used to retrieve the money from Richard's pocket, which further reiterates the moniker of Eric as the trapdoor lover. Box 5 is explained by the nature of the column next to it, which looks like marble, but is actually made of curved paneling, through which Eric was able to enact his schemes as a ventriloquist. Evidence of Eric's place in the cellar is never discovered because he had all the entryways blocked up. We learn that Eric was born very disfigured and that his mother was mortified by him. He learned magic by living among the gypsies and was at an early age a phenomenal singer. His talent produced rumors that would spread all around and even reached the land of Persia. The Sultana wanted to meet him, and she employed the Persian to go and retrieve him. In Persia, Eric learns many skills, both advantageous and nefarious, including the skill of assassination. Mixing his construction skills with the art of magic, he builds all kinds of secret projects for the Shah, and it's because of this that the Shah realizes Eric knows too much, and therefore he sentences Eric to death. The Persian arranges for Eric's escape because he had formed a kind of bond with Eric, and from here Eric makes his way back to France, where he landed a job building the foundations for the opera house. And the rest is history, of which the writer insists he's seen the body of Eric by virtue of the ring on his finger, the ring of which Christine had once lost. This ending is so crazy because it reminds me of the trope that is used often in a lot of Batman episodes from the 60s, where Batman has to choose one or the other, and it is the classic cheesy trope. Though it was written in 1909, it's kind of an originator of the trope, but nevertheless it's the classic suspenseful trope in which one person has to choose the candy-like button on one side or the candy-like button on the other, one of which leads to doom and the other to safety. And it's so clever because it is just so gimmicky and story-like and fictional, but it's really a charm to see written into a novel of this magnitude. After everything we've seen of Eric's behavior and his deviousness and his maliciousness and his strength as a criminal mastermind, we finally see his character coming to an arc when he kisses Christine, and it's as though she has transferred some kind of power into him that allows him to grow. It's the idea that he allows Raoul to live that is so uncharacteristic of Eric, and we find that Eric returned the money to the new managers because he didn't need it anymore. And it's kind of tropey, but in Eric's case, it drives home a little harder because Eric is seen as a monster and he has a lot of pain because of that problem, and his mother didn't help with that pain in any way, shape, or form, and he's been carrying the pain of being reviled by society for so long that when he experiences love for Christine and she finally accedes to it, even though it's under, terrible pressure, once that connection is made, that human touch, that relational touch between man and woman, it changes Eric and he becomes a different person. The epilogue is interesting because it's a creative writer's tactic that is used to validate the notion of something supernatural or something as fantastical as a disfigured human being who lives in the cellars of an opera. And that's been the writer's technique all throughout the entire narrative. It is written in the first person, and there are first-person perspectives of the Persian. It functions to create a relationship between the reader and someone who's telling a story. And what it does is it creates a sense of verisimilitude that is important to the nature of the story, so that we feel very, very, very much as though it's something that is really happening, that it's something that has happened, and that it's something that is important to be remembered. If you've made it this far in the series, thank you for watching, and I'd like to wish you well in your studies of the novel as a form of literature.